Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 373 of the Stacey West Podcast. I'm your host this week, Ben, and I'm joined by Chris. How on earth are you doing, mate? You keeping well? You all right?
Oh, I'm very well. On this fine day. Very well indeed. Yeah, sun's out. Makes a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah.
No stress in the world in regards to football anymore. You know, there's nothing for us to worry about. It's just we're just enjoying the ride. I've had a good week, mate. Though I am making a habit of not really having any interesting stories to share, which I think I'm becoming. I didn't realize this was possible. I'm becoming even more boring. So that needs to change. That certainly needs to change. I've work-wise, I've had a good week. It's been a little bit of a quieter one than it has been recently, so that's been quite nice. I've been spending my time eating cake. Actually, my partner is a teacher, so she's been off work this week, and she's been baking. Made an outstanding Basque cheesecake, which is one of my favourites, and she's done a stupendous job. There's one slice left, which I might have to treat myself to after the podcast finishes.
Has she had any slices herself, or have you just eaten them all?
She's had one or two little ones. Yeah, one or two. Now, of course, doing what I do for a living, got to be a little bit careful of these sort of things because you end up getting judged, don't you, in regard to, hang on, aren't you meant to be all fit and healthy, Mr. Lemming? And the answer is, yeah, I am meant to be. You're right. But we're all allowed a treat now and then, and it's so you can only be fit and healthy, and you can only be balanced if you allow yourself to have those things that make you feel good from time to time. Hey, and I do feel good, Ben. Do you feel good? How are you?
I feel extremely good at the moment. I've aside from the fact that I've been in Boston today, which isn't my favorite place in the world, but that's where my office is, so I have to be there once a week. Yeah, it was, as you say, driving back home tonight, pop punk on very loud, sun was shining, the windows were down, it was beautiful, just really nice. And I was like, yeah, this is all right. But I'm mainly very good because at work, I've been banging my head against a one very specific problem for the past 18 months that nobody that I've spoken to has been able to try and give me a solid answer for. So I've been like trying to figure out what the problem is on this. And yeah, the other day I was talking to a colleague about it, and I was going through everything step by step. Have you heard of like the rubber duck theory, the rubber duck practice?
I don't think I have.
So if you've got a problem and you don't know how to get around it, what you do is you say to somebody, "Can you be my rubber duck?" So they sit there, and what you do is you explain the problem step by step at every single point. And basically, the idea is it is like you are talking to a rubber duck, so you are able to get each step of the problem out, so you yourself can then go, oh, hang on. So I was going through all of this, and then there was one new thing that came up over the past week, and genuinely I realized it, and as soon as it came up I just went, oh, for God's sake, if it's that, I'm gonna be so angry. And it was in fact that, and it was basically another completely different problem that applied to 0.5% of our entire user base in the company, and of course I happen to fall in that 0.5%. And yeah, I fixed the problem, so I'm very happy but very annoyed at how I fixed the problem.
Problem solved nonetheless, eh?
Yeah, so but no, it's been pretty good. As you say, nothing really to worry about when it comes to football at this point. We're not going down, we're not going up. Season tickets have sold well. Everybody seems to just be winding down for the season, at least, you know, from a fan's perspective. I'm sure the players will still want to have a point to prove. But first bit of news, because we should probably start talking about football with 3.5 minutes in. The first bit of news from the club this week is that Dom Jeffries is going to miss pre-season. The chances are that he'll obviously not be quite fully fit for the start of next season. That is because he's had a sort of recurring hip injury, and he will be having surgery over the closed season to hopefully remedy the issues that he's had there. No indication that he's going to miss any games before the end of the season. I think that was it was very sort of pointed that yes, this will be a pre-season thing. So yeah, hopefully won't impact his running too much, which is a bit of a shame. I mean, I know obviously there was some talk about Jeffrey's reaction at the weekend on the podcast on Sunday. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, obviously, if it gets him better and if it sorts him out, then it can only be a good thing long term, can't it, Chris?
Yeah, I suppose so. Obviously he had a little bit of a tantrum after getting substituted on and then off on Saturday. We referenced that on the podcast, and I think Gaz and I both mentioned we kind of see it from both sides, really. Like, you don't like to see the excessive nature of the outpouring, I suppose, but also you want a player to care. You want a player to give a shit, effectively, don't you? So, yeah, maybe accepting Mark a little bit, but Dom is well in credit this season and has been Mr. Reliable and Mr. Versatile. I'm sure there's reasoning behind this from the club's perspective, so I'm not here to criticise at all. I do wonder a little bit why, if he's going to miss some pre-season, there's 3 or 4 weeks left of this season. I appreciate Dom will want to play every game we can, but is it not better in the long term to maybe schedule that surgery for tomorrow? He might miss a few games now, but he's going to come back in earlier in pre-season and be able to really make a run at it. I don't know. I'm sure there's a specific or medical reason as to why that decision maybe hasn't been taken, unless, of course, like you said, it wasn't clear in the interview that that is his season done now, and he'll go and have his surgery soon. But the recovery time will take him through to the end of pre-season. So I'm really hoping it doesn't disrupt his development with us too much, because he's had a really, really strong first season, and you really would like to see him build upon that and kind of push forward with it. And I hope this doesn't hold him back a little bit. We've just seen someone maybe in a similar sort of situation last season in Ethan Hamilton, who's had a real stop-start season this time round, though has, of course, recently had an opportunity to get back in the team, get a run of games, and has really impressed. But it's the first opportunity he's had to get a little bit of a run in the team, and it's April. It's almost the end of the season, and I just really, really hope for Dom that something similar doesn't happen. I hope he doesn't find himself down the pecking order just because of something out of his control. But it's a shame. It's a shame for everyone, because he's been good for us and he's been really reliable, really consistent. And it's a shame for Dom, of course, because he'll want to build upon this season.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, as you say, I'm not 100% sure if it was this will be an operation that happens when the season is done, or he is now done for the season and this will happen in due course. But one player who, unfortunately, and this is genuinely quite unfortunate, one player who is done for the season is sadly Jovon Makama. Obviously went off at the weekend with what it looked fairly innocuous at the time, but as soon as it happened, as soon as he started going for his hamstring, you think, that could be a bad thing. And sure enough, he's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks, according to Marcus Kubala, which obviously means, he's out for the season. I suppose 4 to 6 weeks doesn't sound quite as bad as out for the season, does it? But when you consider, we're what, the 10th of April now, it's a season ender. So it depends whether you want to go for clickbait or not. But yeah,
of course we do.
So yeah, Jovon, it's a shame because he's been. I mean, we will come on to it very shortly, but he's been phenomenal recently for us, and I think he's really starting to come of age. And I think he, more than anybody, he would have wanted to finish the season really strongly. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen, is it?
No, it's not. That is a real shame. It's a shame for him, and it's a shame for the supporters, because he's been one of our most exciting players to watch recently, because he really has been such a threat and such a nightmare for defenders to defend against. When he gets running out a fullback at full steam, there aren't many players in this division that can stop him, it seems. So he's a really threatening player for us, and he's had a real breakout month or two, really. He's been in and around the team for a long, long time, but he's really shone since we've changed to our 4-2-3-1. It's just suited him so well. And let's be brutally honest, we all want our best players to stay in the team and perform well. But if he continued the last 4 or 5 games in the same vein of form, and also goal involvements, he's had something like 5 goals and 3 assists in his last 6 games. So if he kept anything close to that up till the end of the season, there's going to be a hell of a lot of football clubs watching that are kind of based in the Championship. It'd be a player who we didn't pay a fee for, that is now one of our most saleable assets. And I'm not saying that's not going to be the case, of course. Now he's injured, of course, there are still going to be clubs noticing, but it just removes that opportunity for him to continue to impress. Recency bias always plays a part a little bit, I think, in people's memories. I appreciate maybe not so much in recruitment teams, but it's just a shame. It's just a real shame because he's one of our most dangerous players, and that's as much as the season's kind of over for us. We still want to be entertained. We still want to win and play well and watch some nice football, don't we? And he's one of the players in our squad that really allows us to showcase that. But it's not a long-term injury. He's not going to miss any pre-season, it appears. So he will be coming back pre-season fit and firing. And it does give an opportunity to other players, I suppose, as well. So the likes of Eric Ring, I imagine, will probably get a sustained run in the team now until the end of the season. And that's only a positive for him. And that's kind of why you have a squad, I suppose, isn't it? But it is a shame for Jovon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, John says here kind of a similar point there. He says, gutted that Jovon's out, although if it keeps him slightly further away from the front of the shop window, then it might help us keep him over the summer. I mean, yeah, it's a fair point. I think, to be honest with you, there's an argument to say, if somebody comes in with big money for him, and it would have to be because he's just signed a new contract, do you strike while the iron's hot with any of our players, really? And I think, if a top end championship club or somebody like that comes in with a big money offer, it would be really difficult to turn down regardless. So,
or anyone, doesn't really matter if they're a top championship club, anyone that wants to stump up the money that we as a club would think he's worth, we will accept that offer. Thank you very much. And I of course would like to see Jovon Makama be our key player for us and help us get promoted to the championship. That's the dream. But if someone pops in, to aid his development of his career faster than we do, and we can reinvest that money, I don't care if that's a big spending team in League One, makes our job harder. But we mentioned on a podcast a little while ago that Championship teams aren't shopping a lot in League One at the moment. There's not a huge amount of money trickling down, so maybe you have to sell elsewhere, or maybe what you see is the sort of thing that's happening in the Premier League now with the kind of the middle class teams, is that they're now able to hold on to the players that they maybe were unable to hold on to before. Maybe we'll have more of a chance of keeping hold of our prize assets. We shall see. We shall see.
Indeed. Like you say, it would be nice to see Jovon be a key player for us next season. And of course, he has been a key player in League One last month. Jovon was one of 4 players nominated for Player of the Month for League One for March. I mean, it would be a travesty if he wasn't, to be fair, wouldn't it? Like you say, 5 goals, 3 assists. A player that's in that kind of form over the course of a month, it'd be lovely to see him win it. Especially with the news that he's obviously going to be out for the rest of the season. I think it would be just a really nice cap on his season, given some of the stuff that he's had to go through this time out. And to be honest, I mean, I'm just trying to pull up the information. So Ashley Fletcher from Blackpool, Macaulay Gillespie for Charlton, and Arthur Okonkwo from Wrexham. Other players nominated. I mean, it'd just be fantastic for him, wouldn't it? I'd really love to see it happen.
Yeah, it would be absolutely fantastic. So let's just remind ourselves, in the last month, 5 goals, 3 assists, 6 games. That's 8 goal involvements in just 6 matches. It's obviously in what's the word I'm looking for here? Unsustainable. you can't perform at that level for the whole season. Half of that would be outstanding. So it is, but it deserves recognition. Just quickly on the people who he's up against, because let's at least be fair. We are very much biased here. So let's just have a look at the other players that are also up for the nomination. So you mentioned Arthur Okonkwo of Wrexham. That's 6 clean sheets in 7 matches in the last calendar month. Also some big saves in those games as well to secure the points for Wrexham, who just seem relentless in being difficult to beat, aren't they? And they seem to win even when they're not playing well, which is a sign of a team on a good charge. Macaulay Gillespie, centre back at Charlton, he scored 2 goals, got an assist, 4 clean sheets in 6 matches, and then Ashley Fletcher scored 5 goals in 7 games. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be, it's not like it's a walk in the park here for young Jovon, but 8 goal involvements in 6 matches really, really stands out. So I really hope it gets recognised. For us as a club, it helps. It's really nice. It'd be a bit of a win for everyone. One of our own player that's been through the system, breaking into the first team and winning an award, but also just for Jovon himself. That's the most important factor, isn't it? He's had an outstanding month, and it'd be lovely for him to get that recognition.
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, by the time that a lot of people will listen to this, I imagine that you will know for sure whether Jovon has won or not. But yeah, I just really hope it'll happen. So to be honest with you, that's kind of a lot of the news that came out. And bizarrely, for a podcast that features me and Chris, we're only 15 minutes in, and we've covered the majority.
We'd scheduled a break now. I think it needs to be about halfway through, and we're only 15 minutes in. So I'm thinking we don't need to have a break yet, do we?
No, so we have got a couple of questions that have come into the chat, and also I've got a question for you that I've just thought about because I saw it probably about 10 minutes or so before we started recording. Do you like these sporting documentaries that kind of keep popping up, Chris?
Yeah, like to an extent.
Okay.
Why?
Well, how does a documentary sound about a club that's come down into a division and then has spent more money than all of the other clubs combined and inevitably gone on to win the league?
Have Birmingham City announced a documentary by any chance, Ben?
Yes, they have.
What's the bloody point in that?
Yeah,
that's
Birmingham City have
announced. So stupid.
Birmingham have announced on like a day or two after they've been promoted that they've got a documentary chronicling their riches to riches story of the 24-25 season.
Oh, for God's sake.
I mean, look, it's fairly obvious that it's to kind of go into the American market. They've obviously got Tom Brady on board. They've got ambitions of doing a Wrexham in more than one way, off the field. I can't quite put my finger on what the story is going to be, because obviously if you've seen Sunderland Till I Die and Welcome to Wrexham, there is that kind of overarching story, isn't there, of we're bringing everybody together and all of this, and it's like, I don't know what the interest is in a story of we've come down but we're spending all the money so we're going straight back up.
Yeah, it's hardly a fairy tale, is it? And
no.
I'm appreciating that, like, Wrexham have spent more money than everyone else in the league, other than Birmingham, and probably that's the case in League Two, and it was almost certainly the case in the National League as well. So there is obviously a financial element, but and I've criticised Wrexham quite a bit on this podcast, so I think to offer some balance, I don't like them now, and I think if we were in the National League when they were in it, I might not have this opinion. But in terms of just watching from afar, in terms of the documentary, I liked the story because it was a club on its arse. It was a club that was a bit in the doldrums, a city, in all fairness, that felt a little bit left behind. And what they've done, what the club and the storyline has done for the whole kind of city, as well as a football club, was a nice story. It was, I wouldn't go so far as saying a fairy tale, but there was kind of a bigger picture approach to this. And the football thing was fine, and they got the success that financially they should have done. But there was a good story behind it. And now I'm not quite so keen because it is just throwing money at it to go up the levels, and all the success has kind of already been had. The fame is now there. But at the start, at least, there was something kind of rugged and raw about it that I quite enjoyed. Similar to my favourite one was Sunderland Till I Die, because it wasn't celebrating success, and it was just the real kind of the real life. It felt very, again, raw, and I liked it. I liked it for that reason. This was
Birmingham like watching a car crash in slow motion, wasn't it? Over the course of like 17 episodes or whatever it was.
But this Birmingham one's just going to be everything's not been brilliant for a while, but now we've moved into the league. We've spent 1 million times more than everyone else, and lo and behold, we've won the league by a mile. Next, I just don't know what, because it's not like it's the only club in the city, So
no, that's true.
Villa have been on a positive rise over the last few years as well. So it's not like they're doing something for Birmingham as a whole. Like you can maybe associate the Wrexham element and even the Sunderland to an extent, but obviously with the other way around. I'm with you, mate. I genuinely didn't know about this before you mentioned it here, and I've suddenly got very strong opinions on it.
Yeah, no, The thing is, it will probably be something that will find its way onto my telly as background noise while I'm doing something else. And I'll watch it and I'll go, all right then. But I know exactly what you mean when you talk about Wrexham. Like you watched, I personally, I quite enjoy the documentary. I think it's well put together, and I think it's showcases a lot more than just the football.
Yeah.
But watching it from afar, it's like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's quite cool. That's quite cool. Oh shit, they're in League One. This is rubbish. This is awful. They're horrible.
Yeah.
Get them out.
Yeah, that sounds very familiar.
It's kind of, as soon as it starts to directly impact you, you kind of just go, maybe not. But yeah, when they're in the Championship, cool. Yeah, let's get the Deadpool masks out again.
Until we get there.
Yeah. So cool. Right. Well, I mean, look, we'll probably end up talking for quite a bit about Shrewsbury. So I'm gonna take a couple of things from later on in the agenda and start to just throw them in here. But before we do that, we'll have a couple of questions. Steve Barton asks, with the fact Paudie is unlikely to sign a new contract, will we plan for next season by not playing him? I think this is something that you and Gaz touched on earlier in the week, wasn't it? Where you said, he has to play for the last game of the season. But whether there's a sort of impetus to play him in the meantime, I don't really know, because it's been confirmed it's a 4-game ban that he's facing, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, so let's have a look. What have we got? We've got the Charlton game was the first one. No, Huddersfield was the first one, wasn't it? Yeah, so Huddersfield, Charlton. He's suspended for Shrewsbury. He's suspended for the Wrexham game. So the first game back could be at home to Bolton, and then Stockport away, and then obviously Wrexham at home.
Mm-hmm.
So realistically, he's looking at 3 games left before his contract expires. I'd love to see him play all 3 because we know what he can bring us. But at the same time, like, if we're experimenting a little bit, why does he have to play? And I know there's the old saying, which we've said many times on the podcast, that if your captain's fit, he has to play, or if he's available, he has to play. I wouldn't begrudge Paudie maybe a bit of a rest before he comes back for that final game against Wrexham, if it is indeed his final game for us as a player. I know you covered it on Monday, but any further thoughts?
Yeah, I think I have, actually, because there's so many different factors going on here. Because there's the planning for next season, but we're kind of getting the opportunity to do that a little bit without him in the team currently. So that's happening in his absence anyway. But also, Michael has said that he wants to have one eye on next season, and rightly so, when there's nothing to play for this season, really. So it makes sense not to play him. I'm with you. I think we mentioned this on the pod at the weekend, that he absolutely has to play against Wrexham. Like, he's been such a good servant for the football club. He's developed into an absolute warrior at the back and such a leader for us on the pitch. Like, if nothing else, for sentimental reasons, he has to play against Wrexham, final game of the season. Give him a deserved send off, if indeed he does leave, of course. But yeah, maybe I'm thinking, I'm torn between the 2 options, because number one, it makes total sense to think about next season and not play him in the games he's available for. But at the same time, he's still getting paid to play football. He's still a player on our books that we are paying a salary to. So we might as well get value for that salary, hadn't we? But you could say that to whoever plays, I suppose, or not, or doesn't play, who he plays instead of. So yeah, that's a typical answer from me. Lots of words, not really saying anything, because I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I think he has to play the last game, but apart from that, I'm happy to go along with whatever decision the club or Michael makes in regard to the other games he's available for.
Yeah, Flossie does say in the comments, who in their right mind doesn't play Paudie if he's available? It's absolutely a fair point. I think that the argument potentially is you do it in games where there's something on the line. There's so much to take into account here. I'm sure that the discussions will still be going on, but John has just given something here. It says, leave him out until the Wrexham game and then announce a new contract at 2:30 pre-game. This will tie into something which we will talk about later, but I'd love it if everybody's in the stadium and there's just no noise, and then all of a sudden, like, Stone Cold Steve Austin's music hits with the glass shattering, and the music comes out, and Paudie like storms out of the tunnel, signs his contract, and walks away. I was like, that'd be great. But yeah, no, it's, that would be lovely, but I just can't see it happening at this point. It's one of those things. There was another question. Here we go from Keith. Says, evening guys. I know Chris likes his stats. I was looking at a midfield. Oh, it's not so much a question, more of a statement. In particular, both Ethan's and Connor, not one goal between them and only one assist between them. I think that's why I've grumbled at times. Where's the creativity from either of them? Fair point. I mean, I suppose with Ethan and with that position that they tend to hold when they play, it's a little bit further back. It's a little bit more defensive. So is it a fair comment, or is that maybe a little bit harsh, do we think?
I think there's something in it. I don't think it's one totally accurate because, I think when we look at statistics and you look at assists, like you can't deny the facts. There's only one, but that doesn't tell the whole story, really. Firstly, in terms of position, I think it's worth touching on Ethan Arahan. Firstly, when he's been in the team, he has always been our deepest player. So when we played our 3-5-2, he was the base of that three in the middle, and very rarely ventured too far up the pitch. He ranks really highly for progressive passes and for passes that break a defensive line. So he may well pass the ball between the midfield, through the midfield line for a player to receive it, to then create an opportunity for someone else to score. So maybe, I haven't checked this, of course, this is a question live, but I imagine would be quite high for passes that led to a pass that created a shot. Or say the pass before the key pass, but I don't know that for a fact. But I imagine that would be the case. So I don't think that's fair of Ethan Arahan, because he's been in our 3-5-2 at the base of the three. And what tends to happen is the two ahead of them. Then maybe you would expect a little bit more creativity from those. But again, in a 3-5-2 in the style that we had, what those players are more than anything are runners. Really, not really kind of passers or creators. That tends to come from your wing backs or the forward that drifts wide. So maybe the system change has something to do with that. I think Conor McGran does when he's filled in for Ethan Arahan. The same can be applied there. I just don't think Ethan Hamilton's had much of a run in the team to really have the opportunity to get many assists and goal involvements and things. But I think since we've moved to a 4-2-3-1, we've now got 2 6s. So basically 2 players playing deeper. So, both Ethan Hamilton and Conor McGran have played in those roles recently. Again, their job isn't really to be the creator for the shot. It's maybe to either drive the ball up the pitch from a run, or to pass the ball forward into a dangerous area for a wide player to then create the shot. So I think it might be a little bit harsh, but over the course of a whole season, bearing in mind that Ethan Hamilton and Conor McGran have played in those 2 more advanced 8 roles at times this season, would you expect a little bit more? Maybe. Yeah, maybe so. I do imagine that we'll maybe try and add another ball-playing central midfielder into the team in the summer, potentially, depending on Sam Clucas's contract situation. But I just don't think that's a fair metric to measure those particular group of players on because of the roles that they've been playing. I think it'd be far more fair to analyse their interceptions and recoveries and things along those lines.
Absolutely fair enough. I mean, the comment has been made about Bayliss, who says Bayliss got creativity. He's now playing centre mid as well.
Yeah, good point.
So, when you have the likes of Tom Bayliss in your squad, I think that there are players there, and of course, we have Jack Moylan, who is obviously, prefers to play more advanced, and I'm sure he will play in those for spots a bit higher up, but he will be contributing to that a little bit more as well. So there is that. Speaking of Jack Moylan, actually in the press conference, I forgot to put this in the show notes. There is an outside chance that we may see Ethan Arahan at the weekend, and there is also not much of a chance that we're going to see Jack Moylan, even though he is now back in team training. And Skubala had nothing but positive things to say about him and his attitude, because it has just been exemplary for how he applies himself with his recovery and indeed everything else. And from anecdotes of people that I've spoken to as well, that couldn't be more true. He is an incredibly positive energy. He has an incredibly positive energy around pretty much everything that he does. when he's at the club. So yeah, it's looking good. So before we scoot off for a break, let's do a plug, Chris. Let's do something fun. We've been talking about this with the patrons of the site. So patreon.com/the Stacey West or Stacey West blog. Can't remember. Go to staceywest.net to find that one. Patrons of the site have been available, or able rather, to book tickets for something that we've got coming up on Saturday that's actually quite exciting. We've got a live show, which is something that we've not done for a while. But we've got the wonderful folks at Tension Twisted Realities. They have given us a spot in their calendar. We have Saturday evening at 6:45. The doors are opening. We're having a show starting at 7:30. So it's after the Shrewsbury game. Get yourself down. It is ticketed. So what I'm going to do is just paste the link in the chat now. So that should be going out now. As of the moment, there are 3 tickets available. So get yourself there quickly if you want to see it. But we are calling it the Stacey West's Royal Ramble. And there is, if you're watching on YouTube, a incredibly poorly photoshopped image with 4 incredibly bad pictures of the 4 of us.
It's so bad. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it took me like 5 minutes before we started recording tonight, but yeah, it's there we go. The Stacey West's Royal Ramble is happening after the game on Saturday at Tension Twisted Realities. Get yourself down there. If you do show up, if you do get yourself a ticket, definitely get yourself a couple of beers. And some food there as well, because the guys there have given us the space for free and everything else. And Chris has got his finger up.
Easy, Tiger. I was just saying, what we didn't mention is that it is free. The tickets are free, so yes, it's ticketed, but it is no cost. It's just so we've only got a certain capacity. So if you'd like one of those tickets, please go and get them. But just bear in mind. We won't be able to let you in on the day if you haven't got one, but it doesn't cost you a penny if you'd like to come along.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, good spot there. And if you're listening on the podcast, first off, go and check that on YouTube. I'm sure Gaz will probably put that image up on Twitter as well, because he's just message reply saying it's brilliant because it's so bad. But right, we're going to take a very quick break now for some adverts. And when we come back, we will be talking a little bit about Shrewsbury Town, the game on Saturday, and of course, their manager. So we will see you on the other side of this break. I think Chris needs a wee.
No, just wanted to put the light on.
Okay.
That's a bit dark and dingy, my end. There we are. That's better.
So there we go. Right, let's say hello to some folks on YouTube. So Flossie is in. Good evening from a very sunny evening away in our camper van at Evesham. Sure. Very nice. Car's online, says evening lads. Car's a good lad. He's a feeder fan as well. He's got good taste. Steve is online. How are we doing, Steve? You well? Andy says good evening, Ben and Chris. John Booth says good evening. Neil Flower, good evening, chaps from a sunny Barcelona. Oh, I'm jealous of everybody that's on holiday. I've not had a proper abroad holiday for ages, and I think we're going to have one this year. It's going to be great.
Nice.
Keith says Jovon will go for big money. I've said that for a long time. Harry Jackson, evening guys. Dave Tuplin is online, said evening guys. And Flossie says Hick whoops another beer. Fair enough. Yeah, just absolutely. Oh come on, what is this? Kev tuning in from Praia de Luz. This is not fair.
You know what? I'm going to choose something, Ben, here, because I am a little bit jealous of these people. I'm going to choose to not be jealous and just be really pleased that they've chosen on their holidays to tune in to us 2 idiots talking about football.
So to watch me and you from some corner of our house,
indeed,
talking about Lincoln City. Yeah, I mean Kev sits a couple of seats away from me in the ground as well, so I'm fairly sure that when Kev eventually does show up midway through the first half of a game again at some point. It's currently raining, Ben, if that sounds better. Well, it sounds a little bit better, but you're still not here. Although it is a gorgeous day here. So, right. Okay. Good spot to wrap the break up. Don't think there's too much else that's in the comments. Oh, you had the face of you wanted to talk.
on the actual podcast. It's about the gig that I found that's going on.
Oh yeah, I'm so up for that. We've been talking about it in another group of ours. Like we're like, yeah, we should probably go to that.
Definitely want to get tickets for that. Good. Yeah. We'll tell everyone else about it. We could have a whole Lincoln City fan club at the drill, but we'll talk about it in a bit.
Yeah, cool. Right. So in 3, 2, 1. And there we go. That is our commercial break for the week ahead of the weekend's football. And of course, Lincoln City are at home once again to Shrewsbury Town. We have the opportunity to potentially relegate Shrewsbury Town if we win at the weekend. Usually that will probably mean one of two things. Either they have completely given up and they are going to roll over, or they're going to come out fighting. Given that the manager of Shrewsbury Town is now Michael Appleton, I would probably suspect that the second part of that statement is going to be the accurate one in that instance. So let's preview the Shrewsbury game. Chris, what have you got for us on Shrewsbury? And first off, do we want to talk about Michael Appleton a little bit?
Yeah, let's do Michael Appleton first. I've actually got so much more on Shrewsbury than I expected to. So pre-warning, this might take a little while, actually. It could be quite interesting for multiple reasons. But quickly on Michael Appleton, and also in Shrewsbury's approach, not tactically, but just psychologically, really. I don't want to say this lightly because I don't want us to take it easy, but I feel they already believe they're relegated. I think the faintest of hope that they had of staying up was kind of killed, really, when they lost to Cambridge a couple of games ago. But Michael Appleton has also said in his press conference that he may look to give some opportunities to youngsters in the final few games, quote, when it's right to do so. So I'm guessing that means potentially once relegation is officially confirmed. But it does seem, and understandably so, that they've kind of already accepted relegation at Shrewsbury Town now already. And I do think he's probably got an eye on next season in terms of style, because they have changed their style. They haven't changed their system, but they have changed their style a little bit, particularly in the last 2 or 3 matches since Michael Appleton has come in. So, I don't think it's going to be easy, because no game in League One is easy. But being brutally honest around the game, before we go into depth, and we're going to talk about Michael for a bit, it's going to be the easiest game on paper that we have faced all season, but for so many reasons. But it doesn't. But football has a funny way of not always going along with that, doesn't it? But yeah, in terms of Michael Appleton, I actually think it'd be really nice to welcome him back. But do you think he'll get a decent reception from the Lincoln City supporters?
I hope he does. I really hope he does. Partly because, of what he did in the season where we couldn't be in the ground to show the appreciation. And also, I think the way that he left was very Michael Appleton. It was quite abrupt. It was quite to the point, and it was quite unexpected. Kind of after the game, the rumours started circling, and then it's like, cool, yep, that's it, I'm done, bye. No kind of exit interview, no statement to say that's it, I'm done. Nothing showy. It was just very Michael Appleton. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure. I really do hope that he gets a good reception from everybody there on Saturday. And I mean, I'm sure there'll be the odd person booing or whatever, but I would imagine that it's going to be a more positive than negative reception.
Yeah, I think so, and I hope so. I'm led to believe that there is a genuine positive relationship still between the club and Michael, and it wasn't. There was no animosity from either side at all when the club and him parted ways. It really was a genuine mutual parting, and you don't see that very often in football. Even when the kind of news headlines state it, you kind of know. Yeah, but I think I know that this was quite genuine. He took us to our highest finish since 1982, which that's a long time ago, isn't it?
So before I was born.
Yeah, me too, obviously. So quite a lot of football's been played since then, and we've never finished higher than we have under Michael Appleton. It's of course just the fact that happens to be a season where there was a wage cap, and there were some things that went in our favour, which now in hindsight we almost put a little bit of an asterisk next to. But yeah, we did well, but there was the few things that went in our favour, and of course there was no supporters there, which maybe played into the hands of the young players, but it also maybe played against Michael Appleton in terms of his relationship with the fan base. Now, don't get me wrong, I appreciate Michael's never been the sort of manager that has been massively interested in having a particularly in-depth relationship with any fan base that he's managed, but of course,
I think
he was
Oxford probably is the one, and that stands out.
That's probably the one. Yeah, you're right. But generally speaking, it's not something that's hugely important to him. It appears, but he was robbed of that opportunity, of course, when things are going well. So yeah, I obviously don't hope he wins. I hope they lose, and they lose handsomely, because it'll be a very entertaining game and enjoyable one for us. But I like Michael Appleton as a bloke. And I wish him well. So I will absolutely give him a little clap. I think if nothing else, he's earned that. But it's not about Michael Appleton this match, is it? As much as it's a nice little side note to the main event. It is nothing more than just a footnote, really.
Yeah, the thing that's weird about this is obviously, we were expecting to be welcoming Gareth Ainsworth, who would always get a strong reception from Lincoln City fans. Mm-hmm. And then it just became very abrupt. And we obviously spoke about this a few weeks ago on the pod, but it was just really weird to see, like, oh, yeah, Gareth Ainsworth left Shrewsbury to go to Gillingham. Okay, fine. And they've got Michael Appleton. It was just the strangest of switches, really. I mean, obviously, it sounds like it was all Gareth in terms of the move away, but yeah, I didn't expect to see Michael Appleton at Shrewsbury, primarily because you expect to see a team that's struggling in the bottom end of the table kind of just play, blood and thunder, heavy metal football to try and stay in the division, and that's not what Michael Appleton does. And by all accounts, it's not what Shrewsbury are trying to do at the minute due to Michael Appleton. So, what have you got for us on Shrewsbury? Because I'm aware that a lot of it would probably have changed given this managerial switch.
Yeah, a bit has. Style has. System hasn't. Style has. So they're hardly like Crawley in terms of trying to just play out relentlessly and never really kick the ball long at all. But they certainly are more possession based than they have been. Shrewsbury over the course of the season have had the lowest percentage of possession of any team in League One. But in their last two matches, have had in back-to-back games, have had over 50% of the ball. So they've dominated possession for 2 games in a row, which they've not done at any other point this season, I don't think. So I think I counted earlier, there's only 3 matches this season where they had more of the ball than the opposition. So that's just tell a sign. There's a couple of things that are shifting there. I wonder if this is, of course, though, with one eye on next season, but also with almost having accepted relegation. Because, like you say, if you're down there, you play risk-averse football. You do everything you can to not concede goals, stay in games, play direct, and play for set pieces, and try and nick a goal. But you try and not lose. That's what you do when you're down there. That's probably the reason that Gareth Ainsworth was brought in. With Michael Appleton, as pretty as his football is, they're not known for being defensively particularly solid, and also have always had a bit of a weakness at conceding from set pieces. So that's not a real recipe for survival. But if you're going to be one of the teams in League Two that you'd imagine has a higher than average level of talent compared to the rest of the teams there, because you're going down a level, you maybe feel you'll have the ability to then dominate the ball a bit more, dictate play a little bit more. So it makes a little bit of sense to start doing that now as a bit of an extended pre-season, almost like we are really in terms of our change, look with one eye on next season. But before we delve into this game specifically and the tactics and stuff, I'd like you to say a little bit on Shrewsbury themselves, because I've got a bit of a respect for Shrewsbury Town as a football club, particularly did when we were promoted into League One, because this is Shrewsbury's 10th consecutive season in League One now. Obviously, it's going to be their last one, for you imagine for a little while potentially, but certainly at least a season. But it's 10 in a row. And when we were in the National League, particularly when we were in League Two and we beat them in the Checkatrade Trophy final, I dreamed of being Shrewsbury Town. And that was like the extent of my wildest dreams, was Lincoln City to be an established League One football club, to be in League One and stay there. that was it. Like, that was the absolute pinnacle of my imagination when we were down in the levels that we were at before. And it's amazing what happens when you stand still and the rest of League One just leaves you behind. Because that's what I kind of feel has happened to Shrewsbury. They haven't really got they've got worse, but they haven't got significantly worse. Their budget hasn't gone significantly down, but relatively compared to the competition, everything has. That partnered with a couple of seasons of really poor recruitment as well. I just think we've so far surpassed Shrewsbury Town in terms of our establishment of ourselves in League One, and it's just I think Shrewsbury more than any other club, because they're probably a similar size city/town and similar size fan bases, just similar size club in general. I've always kind of compared us to them a little bit, but looking at their League One finishes and saying all I ever wanted was for Lincoln City to be a League One club, but I don't anymore. I want us to be better than just a League One club. I would love us to be a bit like an Oxford, really, more often than not a top half League One club. When every 2 or 3 seasons having a half a shout of a playoff push, and then one of those seasons you go up. But in the 9 previous seasons that Shrewsbury have been in League One, they finished 20th, 18th, 3rd, which was a season that we beat them in the Checker Trophy final when they obviously lost the playoffs. 18th, 15th, 17th, 18th, 12th, and 19th, and of course 24th now. So they've only finished in the top half twice, 3rd and of 12th. Only finished in the top 10 once. So yeah, were they established, but were they kind of circling the drain a little bit? And then became just almost a survival. Every season was just about survival. Like, I don't think I'd want to be a fan of a club that only has aims of staying up. Like, that's the bare minimum for us, isn't it? But I don't think I'd want to be a fan of the club that hasn't got aspirations of doing more than that. And I've got the feeling from Shrewsbury, particularly in the last 5 or 6 years, that all they've really wanted to do was stay up on that success. To kind of like, I think they're maybe missing a little bit of an identity now. So maybe relegation down to League Two will help them. But yeah, what are your opinions on Shrewsbury as a football club? Because I've always just had a little bit of a stronger feeling about them since we've been in League One than maybe a lot of others. Am I on my own or not?
No, I get what you mean. That there is that kind of respect for them. It's like it's kind of how I felt about Morecambe in a way. You know, that they're a club that before they went batshit, you know, they're a club that will stay in a division probably against all the odds and the expectations. I mean, I don't necessarily think that Shrewsbury would be favourites for relegation for multiple seasons before this one, but you know, they were a club that you wouldn't be surprised if they were down in that dogfight. Similar to the likes of, you know, Morecambe before, it was kind of okay. Well, if they do it, then they've outperformed themselves again. They've somehow done it again. And I think it might be a few things catching up with them this season, combined with the massive shift in the financial landscape of the division that has probably, it has seen them drop back down into League Two. I mean, I'm just looking through the points totals here. I mean, Shrewsbury, 29 points in 24th. Bristol Rovers in 20th on 42 points. So, I mean, realistically, if Bristol Rovers win, I think that's it anyway, isn't it, regardless? So, yeah, I mean, Shrewsbury have to rely on an absolute miraculous set of results to retain their League One status. So I think it is an inevitability. It's just whether it comes on Saturday or whether it comes further along. So will it come on Saturday, Chris? Because I wonder if we're keeping up with the 4-2-3-1 formation and everything else that we're seemingly planning for going ahead with next season. I think this could be a big scoreline.
There's a potential of it, yeah. Now, don't get me wrong; they could still be fighting for their lives, and you know we haven't had a brilliant record against the teams that we quote unquote should be beating this season. But everything really does point to a comfortable Lincoln City victory here. So just to kind of clarify a few bits, you mentioned the league table. Yeah, it's not they are bottom of the league, but sometimes the team in 24th at this stage of the season is within touching distance of staying up. They're 13 points away with 5 games to go. Like it's impossible for them to stay up. They've got no wins in their last 12 games. In that last 12, they've only drawn 3 of them. So, of course, 3 points from 12 matches is obviously relegation form. So they've hardly been kind of putting up much of a fight to stay in the division. And Crawley have got the second worst record in that 12-game stretch, and they've got 9 points, so triple the number. In terms of goals against, they don't actually have the worst goals against in League One. They have the third worst, so that's something. Both Peterborough and Crawley have conceded more goals. And also don't have the worst goals for. They've scored 36. Wigan have only scored 35. But they are down in the bottom four for both ends of the pitch. And Peterborough, for example, and Crawley, in fairness, conceded a lot of goals, but score a fair few. Wigan don't score many, but don't tend to concede a huge amount. Relatively speaking, Shrewsbury concede a lot compared to the rest of the league, and they don't score many. You're not going to be a very good football team if you don't score many goals and you concede a lot of them. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that, do you? But I think that just kind of hits the nail on the head, really. And I've gone through a few metrics, but all the metrics are exactly what you'd expect them to be of a team in their position. XG is poor, shots on target worst in the league, accurate passes lowest, touches in the box nearly the lowest, expected goals against second worst. One thing that did stand out, though, which maybe hasn't helped their cause, is that despite having a lot of shots against them, a lot of expected goals against them, you normally see them like saves per 90, that metric to be quite high. So how busy the goalkeepers have been, how many saves have they been made? If you've got loads of shots at you, you'd expect the goalkeepers to make quite a few saves, but they're only have the 15th most for saves per 90, which indicates there's probably a little bit of goalkeeping inefficiency there as well. I think it is a little bit telling that their goalkeeper who started the season, Toby Savin, who has got a goals prevented metric of -8. So that means that they conceded 8 goals more than an average League One goalkeeper should do. He's now on loan at Halifax in the National League. So there's probably an element of, even though they've been under the cosh, they've probably not had a particularly efficient goalkeeper to help them out when they have been under the cosh. So yeah, there's a few things there. Set pieces, they're bad at them. They don't score many and they can see quite a few. They're not the worst in the league, but they are down again in the bottom few for a lot of those metrics. And they're very susceptible on the flanks. So they have flirted with lots of different systems this season. Mr. Hurst, feels like a long time since he was their manager, but he did start the season as their manager.
I'd forgotten that.
So Paul Hurst had been pretty synonymous with the 3-5-2. He'd played that at pretty much every club he'd been at, and abandoned that at the start of this season to try and have a slightly more possession-based approach. Didn't go very well, of course. Shrewsbury started the season really poorly, then reverted back to his 3-5-2, and then a second time reverted back to his 4-2-3-1 before he was fired. But then since January, they have pretty much been in a variation of a 3-5-2, which does suit us in terms of us now having 2 players on each flank in our 4-2-3-1, because we could just really overload the flanks. In terms of the data, they're really susceptible on the outside of their centre-backs. So that could be an in for us. It's a real shame Jovon's injured, because he could have a real good afternoon against Shrewsbury here. What I would say is often when you see teams like this, you see them being quite passive. You see that things like the PPDA numbers tend to be quite high, which means that there's a lot of passes allowed per defensive action, which means they're basically sitting in a low block. They don't let you play through them. That's what you normally see from teams with a lot of the metrics that they're showing, but they're kind of mid-table for that. So they're not as aggressive as Crawley were by any means in their style, but they're not a low block team, and they certainly won't be with Michael Appleton in charge. But it means that they're quite easy to play through. And I think the most interesting one here, which really suits us, is that they're PPDA against. So what's the average passes allowed per defensive action for all the opposition combined? And they have the lowest PPDA against, which means, what that means in real terms is that teams know that they're weak at playing out, yet they still attempt to try to play out now and then, but they're crap at it. So teams know over the course of the season, it's a successful tactic to press high. The Shrewsbury's opposition press higher than any other team's opposition do against them. And that suits us. We're a good pressing team. So if we press high, we should win. If we are good at set pieces, we should win. And then the last little bit here is if we start both halves really quickly, we should win because they have got the worst goal difference of any team in League One in the first 15 minutes and the first 15 minutes of the second half. So between 0 and 15 and 45 and 60, no one else in League One has got a worse goal difference in both of those areas. So if we start quickly, we attack the flanks and we win set pieces, I honestly can't see anything other than a convincing Lincoln City win. So I've been bitten in the arse plenty of times this season with overly positive predictions. So I'm conscious of not doing that again. But
I mean, there is that.
We really should win comfortably here. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the counter to that, and we've all been caught out by being overly positive with a couple of things over this season. But I think the counter to that is you've got a team that is rooted to the bottom of the table. You have a manager that is trying to implement a completely new style. Players that will probably not be quite used to that. Couple that with a team that has a very strong high press. I think this could lead to a bit of trouble because from again going back to the pre-match press conference from Marco Skubala, he said in that there is a clear shift in the way that they're trying to play, and they are trying to play out from the back quite a lot. If you've not got the players that are able to do that, which it sounds a lot like Shrewsbury don't necessarily have, they're going to get caught quite a lot, and we will hopefully be able to take full advantage. I think this is the kind of game where I know there was a few people raving about him on Saturday, but I think this is the kind of game where Eric Ring is going to be able to really stretch his legs and show what he can do. And I think it could be quite a dangerous afternoon for the Shrewsbury defence on that one. Flossie does make the point in here. It would be nice to see a run out for Zayn Okoro as well. I think this could be, one of those games where we just think, okay, sod it. We're not going down. We're not going up. We're okay. Let's give it a go. Let's see what we can do. And it was mentioned, I think, in the post match on Saturday with Tom Shaw when they said, obviously Zayn's been travelling with the squad and he's currently sat there on the bench. Is this going to be the kind of point in the season where we'd be able to see players like Zayn? So I imagine we probably will. If at least on the bench, I imagine he'll probably come on at some point. But I can't do anything other than agree with you and say, yeah, I think this is probably going to be a strong win for us. So, I mean, hopefully it is, because it will give us something to immediately react to on the on the show.
So that's mine and Gaz's responsibilities to talk about the Shrewsbury game. Now, normally I'll watch the game back or watch parts of the game back. We'll get all the stats and I'll try and paint the picture in my mind and compare it with obviously what I've watched and form an opinion on and try and explain what's happened in the game. It's going to be interesting doing that immediately after, because it's not going to be easy to see things back. It's not going to be easy to get, it's not all about numbers, obviously, but it's always nice to paint a picture of what's happened.
Sorry, 57 minutes in, and Chris said it's not all about numbers.
It's not all about numbers, Ben.
Just mostly.
I've never said that. They help you see things that you miss with your eye. That's the way I like to see them. But in regards to Zayn Okoro, I think yeah. To answer Flossie's kind of question, it would absolutely be nice to see. It wasn't a question, was it? It was a statement, but it would be nice to see him have a run out. However, not at the expense of us not winning the game. Like I want us to have a really positive performance here. This is a performance that people are going to pay good money to go and watch. So you want to entertain supporters, score a few goals if we can. But if the opportunity allows, and I'd absolutely love to see Zayn Okoro, particularly now that Jovon's going to be out for the season. It's inconclusive exactly whether Dom Jeffries is going to be playing or not for the rest of the season. So there are at least one spot, if not a couple, on the flanks available at the moment, aren't there? So yeah, I imagine Eric Ring will be wanting to cement one of those. Mm-hmm. But who plays on the other side will be interesting. Dom, I imagine, if he's available, potentially Joe Gardner, potentially Rico could go back out wide, and then you put someone else like Ben House in the 10. But Rico's been so effective in the 10, and then of course there's Zayn. So I think he's gone up in the pecking order now because of Jovon's injury. I'd like to see him get a bit of a run out, and this is probably the perfect fixture if things do go to plan. Which of course it's football; they don't always go to plan. But if things do go to plan, it'd be a perfect opportunity, I think, to give Zayn some league minutes.
Absolutely. So that's Shrewsbury. I think we're both fairly confident of a win. We will obviously, hope for that because it will give us something fun to talk about at the Stacey West's Royal Ramble. We'll be talking about that on Saturday. I am just typing as well, so there we go. I've just put in the chats where to buy things that we are now going to be plugging. First up, as I say, the first big thing, Stacey West Royal Ramble. There are currently 3 tickets available at the link that has been posted in the chat. It was originally a patrons only show. It is now going to be public. There was literally a single digit numbers of tickets when they went on sale to everybody. Get your ticket, come along. It will be a really good evening. 6:45 doors. We've got the game review. There's going to be a segment from me and Charlie looking at the current squad, where we think things are, and also we're going to be looking at the loan players that we have out. So that should be a good discussion as well. We have a lot of input from clubs or fans of other clubs for where our players are out on loan at the moment. It should be a good discussion there. We're also then going to have some fun and games, I think, is probably the best way of describing it. If you're a fan of Burridge, let me see if I can very quickly find the jingle. Here we go.
You forget all footballers, don't you?
Burridge, Cambridge, Leicester, Palace, Norwich, West Brom, Gillingham, Rushden, Brighton, Northampton, Coventry, Peterborough, Watford, Swindon, Boston, Walsall, Hereford, Gainsborough, Northwich, Victoria, Hednesford, Wellingborough, Kidsgrove, Tamworth, Harrogate, Woking, Sunshine, George, Cross, Bedlington Terriers, Wroxham, Morpeth and Seaton, Delaval.
Oh, fucking hell. I forgot about the theme tune, Ben.
There we go.
There we go.
It's repeating. There we go. It is the Burridge jingle. So we will hopefully have a live game of Burridge on Saturday, or maybe even a couple if people
we'll get people involved.
People are up for it. Yeah, we'll have some
so bad at Burridge.
Yeah. Right, and then the other bits that we need to plug, obviously the Imp Tunes yearbooks have gone on sale. The gold yearbooks have completely sold out. The gold yearbooks have some additional goodies in them, which is, it's a really good way to support Chris with what he does. He may have injured his finger doing something that I don't know if he's made it public yet, but it was embarrassingly straightforward, shall we say. He has injured himself, but he will be delivering your Imp Tunes yearbooks later on. I think some point in May is going to be the Imp Tunes day, which is always fun because he goes out and bikes everywhere and hand delivers as many as he possibly can around Lincoln, which is phenomenal. So get your Imp Tunes yearbook. Silver and bronze are up for sale now. Silver is 25 quid. For silver, you get a copy of the yearbook, your name in the acknowledgements, your choice of a piece of player-signed Imp Tunes merchandise, an Imp Tunes beer mat, chance to win a signed 24-25 shirt, and a chance to win the secret prize. The bronze yearbooks were a £5. They have a copy of the yearbook, chance to win a piece of player-signed merchandise, Imp Tunes beer mat, and a chance to win a 24-25 shirt, as well as the secret prize opportunity. There we go. That is Imp Tunes plugged. I'm always up for buying anything that Chris puts out. My walls will be adorned.
Literally going to order mine right now.
There we go. live ordering. That's what we like. So that's that one. And the final one, we've obviously talked about this quite a lot. The raffle for the Stacey West marathon effort. I say Stacey West marathon effort. Gary's marathon effort is still ongoing. You can get tickets on the Stacey West on staceywest.net. The prizes are still, I think they've rolled in a little bit now. We've got a 23-24 signed Lincoln City shirt donated by the former Players Association. We have a framed signed Bradford Memorial Match shirt donated by the former Players Association. Imp Tunes Mansfield Victory cartoon signed by Dom Jeffries, Sam Clucas, Paudie O'Connor. Where the hell did Michael O'Connor come from? Paudie O'Connor, Michael Scabala, and Zach Geacock, which was obviously been donated by Mr. Ray. a special gin box with gin mixes and surprises, donated by Fee, a £100 Bailgate clothing voucher, 5 copies of Gaz's upcoming running book, a signed Imps football, donated by the club, a signed copy of EAFC 25, donated by the club, and a large Sinsel Bank model, which I have made. So yeah, get yourselves involved. It's £5 for a ticket or a strip, whatever way we're doing it. This will be drawn on Saturday live at the Royal Ramble. So get involved. Gaz will be selling tickets in person in front of the Reddit's Community Trust stand on Saturday from about 1:45. Get yourself involved. All of the money is going to help the foundation, who, it has just been announced, have agreed to help keep the outdoor facilities at Yarborough open, which is excellent news. Yeah, Yarborough and Birchwood, they're keeping the outdoor facilities alive, mainly for like community groups and community sports clubs and things like that. That's on the site right now. Actually, it came in as we were recording. So, yeah, good news on that front. I think there's also some more discussions around keeping the facilities open inside as well. So, I think that's probably going to do us for the podcast. I'm aware that the last couple of minutes has just been plugging and telling you where to buy stuff and get things for free to come and see us, but hopefully it has some effect. Is there anything else that you wanted to discuss, Chris?
2 things.
Okay.
Number 1, Michael O'Connor is now assistant manager at Newry City in Northern Irish Premier Division. So that was quite interesting.
Okay.
And also, you and I spotted a very interesting, looks really good fun gig that's happening at the Drill directly after the final game of the season against Wrexham. So it's been put on by Badlands, who are the same people who organise the Punk Festival, which is superb every year. It's like a mini punk festival. I think there's 4 or 5 support acts, followed by the main act, which is a band called the 900, who are, quote, a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater video game cover band. So they sing cover songs of songs that were all part of the and featured on the video game series of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Very much up my street. I am definitely going to be going to that. I think you're well. So for anyone listening that didn't know that's a thing, it's a thing. It exists, and it's something you should go to.
I'm all over it, because basically what you have described, as in a Tony Hawk cover band, like of all of the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater game soundtracks, that was my personality in 6th form.
You and me both, mate.
So I'm all up for that. And I've never seen them live, but I have seen footage of the 900 before, and they do unbelievable like work with the covers. Like you've got Superman in there. I mean, that's the big one, isn't it? Superman by Goldfinger.
I'm so looking forward to it. It's going to be so much fun. So yeah, I stumbled across this a few days ago, a little while ago actually, but I forgot about it. Stumbled across it again a few days ago, mentioned it in our group chat, and I thought there's going to be so many people probably of a similar sort of age to us who probably didn't even know it was on, didn't know it existed, and I thought, like, there's going to be people that need to know about this. So I've got no personal investment in this at all. This is purely a fun thing that's happening after the last game of the season that I thought could be fun to go to. So there you are, everybody.
I was just sat here going like, I'm sure I was the one that told you about this. I'm absolutely positive I was. I'm sure I messaged you about this. And then I've just had a quick scroll back through our messages. And it wasn't this one that I reminded you, I sent you the thing about. It was Nick Cage Against the Machine, which is a Rage Against the Machine cover band fronted by a Nicolas Cage impersonator.
Yes, please.
I don't. Yeah, get tickets to the 900. I'm really up for that. There is footage of a gig where they were playing Superman on stage in LA, and Tony Hawk came out and like joined them on stage. I was like, that's probably the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Absolutely. That's ace. The football podcast is finished now, everyone. By the way, you can leave.
Yes, sorry.
We're just going to talk about music now for a bit.
Yeah. Football's great. That is probably a good spot to wrap up, because otherwise we will just sit here and talk about early 2000s pop punk, which I'll be all right with. But we will see you on Saturday evening if you're coming down. The chances are that podcast isn't going to be out on Saturday evening, because I'm going to have to come home and edit it all. So the podcast will be out on Sunday. And we'll hopefully see you there if you come in. If not, enjoy the game on Saturday. Listen to it on Sunday. Until next time, up the Imps.
Up the Imps.